How to avoid a SIBO relapse. Hi, I'm Megan. I'm a nutritional therapy practitioner and functional blood chemistry specialist. And if you are anything like me back when I was going through my healing journey, you address SIBO and then it comes back, and then you do something else and it comes back again, and you just get into this cycle. Is what feels like a never-ending cycle of just having consistent SIBO, or small intestinal bacteria overgrowth. So I'm going to tell you the real reason why this happens and why it keeps coming back and what to start doing about it. So let's first talk a little bit about what happens when we get SIBO, because this is really important to understand how we actually have to address it and why most people, including people in the functional medicine space, get it wrong all the time. So when we think about SIBO, so SIBO is small intestinal bacteria overgrowth. So we have all of this bacteria in our large intestine, which is amazing. It's great. It's supposed to be there. Now, something goes wrong, and that bacteria basically overgrows and comes up into our small intestine where it's not supposed to be there. And so we end up having things like diarrhea or constipation, or alternating between those two, gas, really, really foul smelling gas, a lot of food sensitivities, a lot of bloating, especially up high bloating, like bloating right up under your rib cage. That's really painful, really uncomfortable. And there are some other symptoms as well. You can have a lot of food sensitivities. You can have undigested food in your stool. Acid reflux, heartburn is super common with this. But overall, those are going to be some of the main symptoms of SIBO. You can do a breath test in order to test for SIBO. They're not super accurate, but they are some of the best way to test. Honestly, if we have the symptoms and we look at some blood work patterns, this is probably going to be my preferred method to figure out if we have something like SIBO going on, and also because SIBO is not a root cause. And so that's the biggest thing we have to understand is SIBO is a symptom of something else going on, and not the reason why all of these things are going on. So when this bacteria overgrows into our small intestine, our bodies are really smart, and they are designed to keep everything in balance and keep everything in check. But if something goes wrong, this is how we end up with dysfunction. Now, this can happen for a variety of reasons. So if we think, so what can happen, what can go wrong where this bacteria starts to overgrow? Well, a really, really big one is low stomach acid. Well, why do we have low stomach acid? Stress is a super, super common reason why we end up with low stomach acid. Stress naturally lowers stomach acid production. There's also a lot of nutrients required to make stomach acid. And if we have chronic stress, we probably have some cortisol issues. We probably have some adrenal issues. And when our adrenals are undergoing a lot of stress, they're going to soak up a lot of our nutrients, some of which are required to produce stomach acid production. Now, this could be general inflammation in the body that can also contribute to low stomach acid, or just dysfunction in general. So if we're eating a really poor diet, if we're not getting enough protein, if we're not getting enough vegetables, enough variety of food, enough nutrients from our food in general, this can also lead to a dysfunction that can lead to SIBO, or small intestinal bacteria overgrowth. There's also two really, really big ones that I see, especially in my practice. Number one is parasites. If you have a parasite overload, it's not that the fact that you have a parasite, because we all have parasites, and it's not a big deal. Once again, our body's really good, really smart, keeps everything in the amount and place where it should be to not impact us. But if something goes wrong and we end up with a parasite overload, and I'm going to get to that in just a minute, what can go wrong, that is a massive, massive root cause of SIBO that I see missed all of the time. I will say parasites were a really big issue for me. They're a really big issue for a lot of my clients. And parasites are hard to catch if you're not trained properly. A stool test is likely not going to catch parasites. Blood work, direct blood work for parasites, is likely not going to catch parasites. I will tell you personally, I did 5 stool tests, and my stool test, outside of the first one, which wasn't the best, but it also wasn't the worst, showed almost perfect gut health, even though I had all kinds of gut symptoms. And no one could tell me why for a really long time, why I had all of these gut issues. And yes, I had a positive SIBO test multiple times. I was addressed for leaky gut, all of these things. But one of the biggest things that was missed for me was parasites. And I see this for a lot of my clients. Now, how do I look for parasites? That's a whole other video, but real basic. There are some patterns in blood work and standard blood work in the CBC with differential that are a really good indication coupled with symptoms of parasites. So that's typically how I look for them. So if we have a parasite issue, we're probably going to have a bacterial issue, a yeast, a fungus issue as well, if it's been going on for a long time. Now, what can go wrong that can lead to a parasite issue? Well, the most common one is going to be a toxin issue, a toxin overload of some sort. This could be heavy metals, mold, environmental toxins, but we just have too many toxins in our body. For, once again, this can be for a variety of reasons. That's a whole other topic. But if we have a toxicity issue in our body, that's often going to lead to all kinds of dysfunction, including low stomach acid, including high stress levels, including nutrient deficiencies, including a parasite problem, and we're probably going to end up with something like SIBO. So you have to dig deeper into understanding, why did you get SIBO in the first place? What went wrong? And it's probably not just one thing. And maybe it started with one thing and has coupled down for a few different things. And we have to look at the entire body altogether to understand, how do we actually have to address SIBO? Yes, we have to address it, but if we don't address how it got there in the first place, it's just going to come back again and again and again. And if you want to stop that cycle, figure out what exactly is going on, address it, and then you can no longer have SIBO. So be sure to